Hi, and thank you for joining us. We are Team Wolfpack, and our GLE this month is on beginning of the year strategies through the lens of expulsion and suspension prevention. And Team Wolfpack, we are Amanda, Cheryl, Christina, Nadir, Rebecca, and C. And we'd like to start off our GLE with a land acknowledgement. And we would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the Duwamish tribe. We acknowledge that the city of Seattle and its green spaces are the stolen Coast Salish land, specifically the ancestral land of the Duwamish, Suquamish, Stillaguamish, and Muckleshoot people. We also acknowledge the forced labor of enslaved Africans that our country and institutions are built upon. Here at Bright Spark, we stand against all forms of racism and ask that you stand with us to end racism in all its forms. And our Bright Spark mission is to nurture and sustain child-centered, anti-racist early learning communities.
Thank you, Rebecca. So the first thing we're going to talk about is setting up your classroom environment. So your classroom environment, when set up correctly or for in the best interest of children, can act as a second or even a third teacher, helping you to manage emotions and behaviors. As we move into this new school year, we should be thinking about refreshing our classrooms, and there are several things to think about. So number one is, do the children feel a sense of be belonging? Is there a space for all of their personal stuff to go? Do they have a cubby? Is it labeled with a current picture and their name? If you have a family wall, is there a family or someone that is important to them on that wall? And if you do, here's who's here today, birthday wall, etc., do you have current names and photos up? The second thing to consider is, do children feel safe? Look around your room. Are there any areas that have excessive amounts of clutter? Sometimes when there's a lot of clutter, children can feel overwhelmed and overstimulated. So making sure that we have a nice, calm, clean environment. And then, is the room clean and sanitized regularly? Do you have a good sanitizing routine for all of your shelves and toys? Are the materials and shelvings free from safety hazards? So look around your room daily and check to see if your toys have any sharp edges. Are there any broken pieces? Are your toys safe? Are there any broken pieces, and do they need to be thrown out? And then stand in the corner of your classroom, look around. Are there any supervision blind spots? If you have large areas where you're unable to see children freely, think about rearranging your classroom space. The third thing to think about is, do children have enough materials to play with? Are the materials age and developmentally appropriate? If the toys are too easy, the children could become bored, and if the toys are too difficult, the children could become frustrated. Are there ample and varied toys to play with? So looking at your materials and making sure that there are enough and there is a variety. And then, do you rotate materials to keep children interested? Children tend to get bored, so making sure that we're refreshing our classrooms regularly can help keep them interested. And then, with your popular toys, do you have multiples to avoid fighting? If you know that block area is a very popular space, making sure you have enough blocks so that multiple children can build without having to fight. Another popular material is magnetiles, making sure that we have enough magnetiles for multiple children to play with. And then do you have a variety of sensory toys, such as Play-Doh, a sensory table with ample room for multiple children to play? Sometimes when children are overwhelmed or they're overstimulated, using sensory toys such as Play-Doh, sand, water can help calm them down. And lastly, does your environment promote pro-social skills and relationships? So do you have an emotions display? Do you talk about it? Do you have a set of classroom rules and expectations, and are they displayed for your children to see? And do you have materials, books, and photos that encourage relationships and problem solving? Um, just taking an audit of your classroom and refreshing and making sure that children have materials to play with and that they feel like they belong can help cut down on quite a few challenging behaviors that happen.
Thank you, Cheryl. Next, we're going to talk about transition plans. The first one being between classrooms. So, for instance, infants to toddlers, toddlers to preschool, preschool to pre-K. Having a transition plan for when children move classrooms can be a key factor in preventing suspensions and expulsions. Teachers can share with each other their deep understanding of the children. Some ideas to include on this form. And these forms, you can make them um, for how they work best for your program and pick and choose some of these different areas for what works best. But some of those ideas to include on a form are sharing some key personality traits of the child, including their general temperament, their eating needs, their napping needs, their eating and napping habits, what works best. For example, if a child is more successful napping when they are tucked away in a corner, rather than in the middle of a group of children, tips and tricks such as those. Sharing what activities and materials the child enjoys and is successful with. Um, and then to be sure that those materials and activities are available for the child in the new classroom. Share as the past teacher, share what you have observed to be possible triggers for a child. That's something that might cause anger, frustration, or any other potential unwanted behaviors. Once, as a child that's been in your classroom for quite a while, the previous teacher is very should be very well versed on these types of triggers. Also share how you were successful or not in creating a relationship with the child. We all know that these relationships between teachers and children form the basis of everything the child is going to learn in the program, how comfortable they feel, and just their overall success. So some of these might include if you know what the child's favorite food is, what their favorite things to do outside of school, with their family, making sure that one-on-one time is given each day, things like that. How was it that you were able to form a great relationship with that child? Also sharing some specific strategies you use to help calm, validate, reassure, de-escalate, or connect with that child. These specific strategies will really be key for the new teachers to help create that relationship and help that child be successful. So knowing what works and what does not will increase the likelihood of success and decrease the frustration for the teachers and the children. It could be that the former teacher's relationship with the child was not strong, and in this case, a new setting and a new open-minded teacher ready to connect with the child could make a huge difference. And in addition to sharing the knowledge about the child from teacher to teacher, it's also equally important to prepare the child for their new classroom environment. So you can include families in on the plan so that they can talk about this change at home and to support the process and the success. Families can be a great resource to help you with these tips and tricks that could help. Set a plan for the child to visit the new classroom. Start out with small amounts of time and slowly increase as the child acclimates and becomes more comfortable. For example, you could start out by sending them for an hour for a day or two and then slowly increase. It's also helpful to have several children transition at the same time so that they have a familiar friend to lean on when they're feeling shy or unsure. Also, it's important, no matter the age of the child, to allow comfort items to go with the child to their new classroom. Even if it's a preschool child going to pre-K, something that's comforting and familiar can really make a big difference in the success in the new classroom. And when you get the copy of this PDF, you'll be able to click on, there's a great resource here for tips and tricks for children who are shy and slow to warm up to new environments. And this is from the 0 to 3. So the next transition plan that we'll talk about is for children that will be heading off to kindergarten. So just like in early learning programs, having a transition plan for children going off to kindergarten is important for preventing suspension and expulsion once they reach elementary school. You can ask the families what school the child will be attending. Teachers can reach out or send information with the family. And many school districts have transition forms already, and you may be able to find them on the district website. I had found one that was in the northwest corner of Washington. Um, and then there was, which was not really relevant to our group, in King and Pierce counties. But there is a link here to a form used by the Washington State OSPI, which is the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction. And I've also included a wonderful article from NIAC or NACI with more tips of transitioning from early learning to kindergarten. Another important piece to keep in mind is that for children and families who are receiving special education services, the transition to public school can be very stressful and very confusing. Um, they are now 5 years old, and the law changes in the way these special education services are given changes. Washington has an organization called PAVE, Partnerships for Action, Voices for Empowerment. And it's an excellent resource to advocate and help families with this transition. The link here is there, and it includes anything that you could think of for this transition.
All right. Our focus now shifts to the back to school curriculum. So today, what I'm presenting to you is the foundational pieces for you to build and to form your curriculum and to set yourself up for success for the beginning of the school year. The main objectives and desired outcomes that we'll be aiming for with these points I'm looking at are first impressions, acclimating children, instilling confidence, establishing structure, and then identifying leaders. So first impressions really matter. Focus on being fun and less demanding first. For the first week, first month or so, I am very flexible in understanding and knowing that it takes time and it takes a process to understand the rules and the routines of a classroom. Also understanding that most of these kids or some of these kids Might be the first time they've been away from home. Might be the first time they've ever had to learn structures or rules. So teaching it for the first time, modeling it for the first time, having patience and understanding that it's going to take a little bit of time for all these kids to fall into place, to know the routine, to know the rules, and to remember it, and to have that understanding and that flexibility to know that it's all right for them to make mistakes. The first impression that you give off to your students is what they're going to see of you. I want you guys to come off as someone that's warm, someone that's welcoming, someone that's caring, someone that's nurturing. And one of the things that I emphasize is every day in the first week, first month of the school year, prioritize making your students laugh each and every day. And for me, this at the very least is a checklist that I go through, and it helps me see that, okay, I've engaged with this student, I've had conversation with this student, I've made an effort to try to make this student laugh. Because oftentimes in the classroom, especially early on in the school year, sometimes the more quieter students end up being the ones that are the ones that we don't address, or maybe we address as a group, but we never really get a chance to really address individually or have a genuine conversation with. So when you go through these types of checklists, you go through each day, you at least are focused and engaged on trying to make a conversation, trying to make other students laugh. And in my experience in doing this as a teacher, you end up enjoying your experience. You end up enjoying your job and the part of the day a lot. You find moments to be silly. You find moments to do a lot of different things that it's a little bit outside of your comfort zone, but that's the part of being a teacher, is being able to step outside of your comfort zone, being able to enjoy those couple of things. And some of the things that I do to make kids smile every day is, one, just finding moments in the day to be silly or funny, experimenting with different voices, like really have fun with it. Sometimes reading a book using an alien voice, using a silly cat voice, using a louder voice, changing up your tone, just being silly and having fun with it. Role playing, becoming characters with your students. If you see them in dramatic play, they're being doctors, they're playing mom and dad. Go down there with them, become a doctor with them, become a puppy, be an injured dog that a vet needs to help with, be a teacher that's coming in, or be a chef with them and help them cook some food. Just have fun and be on their level. For me in the classroom, why not randomly bust out your favorite dance move? Randomly just have fun, randomly just be silly. These are little things that I always do just to make kids laugh. Going from snack time, passing up the snack, I'm moonwalking to the kids. Why not? Randomly at circle time, I'm gonna hit the running man or something funny. So it's different ways that I find times and opportunities to make the kids laugh. Yes. And then sometimes I pretend kids are invisible. I can't see them. Sometimes I label things so ridiculously wrong that it's really silly. Or sometimes just being able and being willing to laugh at yourself. Those things go a long ways in helping the kids see that you're not only their teacher, but you can also be their friend as well. You can also be on their level and play and have fun with them as well. Next slide.
I love this.
And the next part is acclimating children to a new environment. As I just mentioned earlier, a lot of these students, a lot of these kids might be away from home for the very first time. They might be away from mom and dad for the very first time. And these strong emotions are going to show, and they're going to show in a lot of different ways. Some will be more obvious. You'll see the kids that are more drawn back. You see the kids that will display the emotions with tears, display the emotions in their body language. And then there'll be some that won't show it as obviously, some that have a lot of pride, some that won't want to show that they're crying, but they do miss mom and dad. They do miss being at home, but they might exhibit it in different types of behavior. So in the beginning of the school year, just understanding that these strong emotions are going to come from all different types of angles, and just knowing that they're not just trying to make your day bad. They're not just trying to make everything else chaotic. They're going through a lot of these emotions, adjusting to this new environment, adjusting to this new person that's telling them to do this, telling them to do that, adjusting to all these new friends and all these new rules. So there's a lot of emotions that happen in the very first week. And to understand and to be able to help them acclimate is to have some patience, have a lot of understanding, provide comfort when needed. If someone needs a hug, that's what they need. If they need some space to cry or they need some space to be alone, that's okay too. First week, I always try to have at some point during circle time some sort of a dialogue about moms and dads going to work, talking about the importance, or just that's just something that happens. Kids would go to school, moms and dads, they have to go to work, and then reinforcing it with a book. I like reading Owl Babies. It's a book that at the very end, the message it shows that no matter what, mom always returns. Mom might go for a while to maybe get some groceries. Mom might fly off to get some food. Mom might fly off to go to work, but she always comes home. So that's the point that I was emphasized with the kids that you guys are going to be here for 6, 8 hours 5 days a week. We're gonna have a lot of fun. We're gonna learn so much. You're gonna be able to get to meet new friends, get to know the teachers, get to explore all these different types of activities. But at the very end of the day, whether it's 3 p.m. or 4 p.m., whenever pickup time is, reassuring them that mom and dad will always be there. Mom and dad will always come back. You always see them at home, or grandma is picking them up, or uncle's picking them up later on at night when mom and dad comes home from work. They'll always be there. And that cycle is always going to be like that. So just kind of reassuring with them and letting them know that things will be okay. And expressing and emphasizing with them that, hey, it's okay to have tears. It's okay to have strong emotions. Sometimes as a teacher, I also share moments of myself being sad, myself missing mom and dad, or myself missing others, just to show that, hey, we're human too. Sometimes, my assistant teacher, he misses her grandma. Sometimes I miss my uncle. And just having that kind of being able to relate to each other can help the students be able to understand that, these are just emotions that we go through, but just reassuring that the parents will be back. All right, this next slide. Next is instilling confidence in the children. I like to set my kids up for success. I like to set my students up for success. I like to make them feel like they're successful early on. The last thing I want to do is be able to present them with all these extra challenging things that I know that they're not at that level yet, to kind of challenge and push them. That's for me to kind of do later on in the year as I get to know the students more, as I get to know who I want to be able to challenge, which areas and which areas I want to be able to push more. But in the beginning, I want to set them up for success. Why not throw them an easy out route? Why not give them an easy fastball up the middle? Give them activities and things where they will feel successful early on, where they can feel like, yes, I can do this. Oh, I'm enjoying doing this. Oh man, I'm enjoying completing this puzzle with teacher C. Now let's move on to a next level. Oh, I enjoyed building these blocks and setting this up. That was really awesome. We completed that and we did it the right way and we were able to do it. Instill that confidence in them early on that they can. When they are able to complete something, hype them up. When they make a basketball shot or they make something into a basket or they're able to complete a math problem, hype them up. Like, oh, that's awesome, man. Hype them up the whole time, cheering on them, clapping on them, just make them feel good about themselves. And for me, I always tell them every time they do something, repeat, I did it. And I let them know to exclaim it and say it with pride, say, I did it. And I try to normalize just celebrating small milestones with them. Little things that, are just sometimes things that people just do and it just goes by. Why not clap for that? Why not cheer them on? Why not make them feel good about the small things that they're accomplishing? So for me, that's one of the things that I like to build on early on in the school year is instilling the confidence in my kids that yes, you can. And I try to say more cans than don'ts and more cans than can't. So I try to instill that in them and I try to build them up for success by having activity that I feel like they'll be able to do. And if it's something that's challenging, do it with them and set them up so they're able to succeed. If it's a puzzle that's really hard, maybe position it so they're able to put those pieces there. Maybe these 3 pieces are going to be with that area. Maybe place it around that place so they can find it, and then have them be able to locate it and put it in. Just kind of guide them and help push them towards success is what I usually do. All right, next slide. Next is establishing structure and routine. And one of the most important part that I emphasize is for the teacher to understand that we have to teach the routine. We have to teach the expectation first. We have to make sure it's properly understood, it's properly communicated, demonstrated, and even modeled before we can expect the rest of the classroom and all the students to be able to follow and execute it in the way that we envision it. Sometimes we assume based on age that some students are capable of doing certain things. They know how to clean up. They know how to put a book away. They know how to line up. But sometimes cleaning up, the definition is a little bit different in some households or even different classrooms. Maybe at home, cleaning up for them is you just got to pick up 6 toys. Mom and dad picks up the rest. But that's what they do here. We don't know that. So unless you've actually modeled to them what proper cleanup looks like, you cannot be upset at them for not cleaning up properly or in the way that you envision it. So what I do in my classroom is first couple weeks, I have specific lessons to teach them these little things that I want them to do. I have a game and activity specifically just for cleaning up. I set up 4 different bins of four, different toys and everything. It could be like cars and blocks, math manipulatives. And I take about maybe 8 or 10 out of them and I kind of all mix them up together at circle time. And then I call maybe 2 kids to volunteer. And then, maybe they want to get into position like an animal. Maybe they want to get in position into racing like Noah Lyles. So I tell them I count down 1, 2, 3. I let them know, hey, let's see who can clean up the fast. Or if as a group, let's see if we can do it within this X amount of time. And I set up a timer. I have them come. They come up. They sort. They put the toys away. And during that time, I have all the kids cheer them on. I hype them up. They're hyped up. They're being excited. They're making the kids feel like they want to do this. So the next group, they're excited. They're eager to participate. Now they want to clean up. Now they want to put these toys away. So we're getting them to practice how to sort, how to put them away, and also showing them this is what proper cleanup looks like. And then you can also emphasize at the end, look, you guys can have fun doing this if you guys just choose to have fun doing it. We can have fun with something if we can just choose to have fun with it. So just letting them know that cleanup doesn't always have to be something that's so stressful. We can make it into something fun where you guys can do it like this. And you guys can also show me, you've also demonstrated that cleanup doesn't have to take 7, 8 minutes like you guys do when you guys lazily put things away. You guys can quickly put things away if you guys really wanted to. So I set up all my kids for success early on in the school year. I have a lesson specifically just to help put books away. I have a lesson showing them how to get in line, having kids come up 3, 6, 9, 12 at a time, practicing, showing what to do. And I would have teachers or myself, and I model what I want to see and how the expectations are supposed to be before I have my actual expectations of what I want to see. Yes. Oh, can I have it over here? Baby. Can you come over, brother, please? And with that, when you take the time to establish the routines early on, from October, November, December, moving forward, all the kids will know what to do, how to do it, and all the routines will already be in place. And from there, you can start being successful in all the other areas because now you don't have to worry about the small things every day. Let's go to the next slide. And then very last part, what I do at the beginning of school years, I try to identify the leaders in my classroom. Now, if we're busy with routine, we're busy trying to establish everything else, and our mind is still trying to get our classroom together. Oftentimes, the teachers are not focused on identifying leaders in the classroom just yet. And sometimes by default, the most outspoken students become leaders if the teachers are not the ones kind of playing a role in it a little bit. And for me, what I do in the classroom as a teacher is I try to highlight examples of leadership when I see it. I try to highlight examples, whether it's during circle time or getting in line, showing leadership outside. I really highlight and I make my highlight special enough where the kids feel like, hey, I'm being seen when I'm doing these things. I feel like I am helpful to others when I'm doing these things. My friends enjoy me doing this when I'm helping out, when I'm showing this type of leadership. And the more that I praise and the more that I highlight these things, more kids start to try to mimic these actions, to receive this, to feel that good feeling coming from the teachers. And then I make becoming calling a leader a special thing. And then giving them special maybe assignments that they can do. Like a lot of kids, you guys probably know in the classroom, you probably had a few that have always wanted to help out with everything, help out with passing things out, helping out with washing the tables, helping out with material. So these are some of the kids you can lean on. You can give them special tasks that they can do because they've exemplified leadership in other ways. So now other kids that may have not are not at that level of leadership yet. They might say, hey, I want to do some of these things. So I want to pass this out. I want to be a part of circle time. I want to lead with a song. I want to be a part of Friday dancing, whatever it is that these privileges that you're giving them. So now they want to exemplify these leadership skills too. So as you're identifying the leaders, start to build leaders that are younger than them, and your whole classroom will be just a cycle of you building up leaders where you are now kind of just taking a step back and allowing the classroom to kind of just flourish on its own as you are creating the leaders within the classroom.
All right, next we're going to speak about relationship building for students and families. Next slide. All right, so the first part, which is definitely most important, is establishing trust, which is a key to the building relationships. So the first point is to take your time. Building trust is a gradual process that requires patience. Be intentional on what you're doing, actively seeking out opportunities to connect with families and create positive experiences. So if you hear about something new that the child might share, you might be able to mention that to the family during pickup or drop off and, create small talk off of that. And definitely create those experiences by just speaking about the great things that the child is doing throughout the day. Um, Also be aware of your biases when you're dealing in building relationships with your families, recognizing your own biases and working to address them to ensure fairness and inclusivity so that you're not, dealing with any blind spots when you're, building those relationships so that you can give them the proper services that they need. And then be encouraging and supportive of the families, offer positive reinforcement, encouragement to the families, they're getting the kids there on time. Even if it's a little bit late, just encourage them to, continue to follow the rules, especially, young families, the first time parents, and they're just getting used to those type of environments. Positive reinforcement goes a long way for the children as well as for the adults. Playing together, and engaging in those fun activities as we spoke about earlier, and interactions, those foster a really great sense of connection and camaraderie. And you're able to learn, each other's personality and temperament. So that's a great way of establishing those relationships and, and personally being vulnerable. Show a human side of yourself here. You're not, it's not supposed to be a hierarchy feeling within the classroom. Everyone's supposed to be feeling as if they have a proper contribution to that space. So showing your human side and admitting mistakes, and modeling accountability and humility, is great for children to see that side of you, and that's the human side of you. So here are some tips to building relationships with families. Like I said, being consistent. Families appreciate predictability and reliability. So try to be consistent in your interactions, your expectations and routines, so that that they can rely on you. With any way they'll know exactly how to approach or how to communicate with you if that reliability is established early on. Next, we communicate openly and honestly, being transparent about your expectations and the reasons behind your decisions so that the families can have the understanding of why you chose to do the policies within your classroom, and also encourage open communications for family as well. So if there may be any disagreements or any other concerns that they may have about the things that are going on in the classroom, they have the freedom to address those with you. Being an active listener, show that you're paying attention and valuing their perspective. Use active listening techniques such as maintaining eye contact, nodding and paraphrasing what they say when you're having discussions with the families. Um, and also respecting the individual differences. Acknowledge and appreciate the diversity of families and their experiences. Treat everyone with respect and avoid making assumptions. And that goes for, and that's why it's important to check your own biases so that you don't come with those assumptions that may cloud your judgment when you're interacting with these families. And celebrating successes, recognizing and praising children's achievements, no matter how small they are. This can help build their confidence and strengthen their relationship with you. And like I said, the same way goes on with the when you're interacting with the families as well. Praising them for getting those things done for the child, and making sure and being responsible and perform the duties that it's supposed to do. Being patient. Building trust takes time, so be patient and persistent. Keep work on your relationships with families, even if the progress is slow. But like I said, if you're being intentional and consistent, it'll come over time. All families are different. They come with their own, perspectives on building relationships. But if you come with the different tips and tools that we use as an early childhood educator, um, eventually, at least there will be a cordial and respectful relationship where you're able to, give information and receive information from the families. So, the big tips and takeaways, connect early, talk to families, even before they get enrolled. So establishing that connection and relationship before the child gets into your classroom is very important, so that if anything does arise or any concerns come arise, that can be communicated and interventions can be started. Listening and sharing, talk openly with families about their child's needs and share positive things about them. Um, Establishing open communication to learn about the needs of the family in case there needs to be accommodations. Some families have different work schedules, different, way that the children may have sleeping schedules. So they need to be maybe accommodated with different time changes as well as different resources. So having that open lines of communication allows you to learn that. Find the best way to talk. Figure out the best way to communicate with the families. Maybe those morning and afternoon drop off and pickups might not be the time to talk. So maybe an email, a text, or a phone call might be a better way. So finding that out is very important, and making the classroom feel like home. And that is by using those family photos and personal items to make the classroom feel welcoming and a representation of those children so that they feel belonging within that environment as well.
Hello, everyone. So I wanted to talk to you guys about tips for talking to parents about special education evaluations. So the first one is prepare thoroughly. During the beginning of the year, it's time for assessment, taking lots of notes, making sure everything's documented if you have any type of concerns. Um, Making sure, you just really gather examples of the child's work and any relevant assessments that have, specific examples because you really want to illustrate your concerns to the parents. My next one is create a comfortable setting. Make sure that you arrange for a private and quiet, comfortable setting to conversate with the parents. You might say, hey, do you have time to meet this day after school? Kids leave really early and not have time to meet, or can you tell me what might work for you? Just really making sure you have a private place where you're able to just have this conversation with them. Next is be compassionate and empathetic. For a lot of parents and caregivers, hearing that their child may need a special education evaluation can be very scary. So just approach the conversation with empathy, understanding, that this is difficult and that acknowledging that for parents or caregivers that, yes, this may be a difficult time. Um, but also when you have the conversation, a lot of times, as everyone knows, in early childhood education, we start with like the sandwich method. So really coming into the conversation with the family and, trying to kind of shed some light, like, hey, I noticed that so and so is really interested in doing art projects. And, you might even bring some artwork to show to the caregivers. Um, Use clear and respectful language. So as you may know, like sometimes if you go to the doctor's or the dentist's office, they're telling you all these things and you're like, whoa, what did I hear? And you don't understand. So it can be the same with special education evaluations. A lot of parents and caregivers, they've never heard of an IEP or a 504. They don't know where to go to find this information. So just really making sure that the information you convey is understandable. You don't want to be throwing a bunch of like jargon at them and have them all confused. And make sure that your tone of voice and the words you use don't sound very judgmental. You don't want the parents or caregivers to think that you're judging them because their child may be atypical or neurodivergent or anything like that. Um, Next slide, please. Focus on the observation, not the diagnosis. So like once again, you are not a doctor, we are not here to diagnose children. We really just want to make sure that parents know like what we're seeing during our observations. So you might say something like, I've noticed that so and so often may need extra help with activities that require several steps. And then you might say like, oh, during this project or when we transitioned, I noticed that he needed a lot of help from the teachers. And um, he seems unsure of what to do, without additional instructions, which can be like very confusing for him. So really, just like I said, focusing on the observation and not trying to diagnose children. Um, Also explaining the purpose of the evaluation. So the purpose of the evaluation is to better understand this child's unique needs and to determine how we can support him more effectively in the classroom. It's not about labeling the children. A lot of families and caregivers may think that having this label of being in special education can hinder the child or hold them back from things, which is just not the case. The whole point of this is to help your child thrive and make sure that, they're comfortable in the classroom and they're getting their needs met. And then you want to make sure that you provide, you know, your caregivers, any providers, anything you work with information and resources and next steps. So providing them with information of where they can get these evaluations, how to go about finding your IEP or if you need to go to the school district or what may happen next. And then last but not least, follow up with the caregivers, let's make a plan to meet again in a week to review the evaluation results and discuss the next steps. Sending them a reminder a few days before to ensure that, the meeting is convenient for them, and just providing the necessary support for the family and the child. Next slide, please. The next two slides are for resources. The first resource I provided is early support for infants and toddlers. It offers early intervention services for children under 3 and can help with the transition to preschool with special education services. The next one was Washington Paid, Partnership for Actions and Voices of Empowerment. It offers support to resources for families navigating the special education system, including guidance on evaluations and IEPs. So like a lot of times, as a parent or a caregiver, when you get an IEP, it has lots of different sections and it has like reading, cognitive, and it will have like a breakdown of how many minutes your child will get in all these different areas. And it's not the most user friendly. So this is someplace you can go to kind of help break down that information. Um, Parent training and information centers. They provide resources for parents and children with disabilities. Your local school district is also how you may go about helping the children and family, get that evaluation. So you might want to contact the special education department of your local school district. Next slide, please. And last but not least, these are some more resources. Like I said, the Seattle Public School District's Special Education Department. You can email them and set up a time where you could learn more about special education, or if that is the family school district, then you can direct them to them. For families in Pierce County, they have the Pierce County Developmental Disabilities. Pierce County Developmental Disability provides service and support for children with developmental disabilities and their families. And then here's the Individualized Education Program, IEP guides. So you can go to this website, understood.org, and it offers a guide on IEP processes, including on how to navigate the evaluation and support the children with special needs. And then last but not least, there's a book, and it's How to Advocate for Your Special Ed Child. And it just gives parents a bunch of tips and resources also that they can use for navigating the special education system. Yeah.
All right, so now we are going to move on to developmental screenings. So the beginning of the school year is the perfect time to administer a screening tool to each of your students. This allows you and your students' caregivers to identify where a child may be developmentally and will help you narrow down how you as the teacher can individualize instruction as well as partner with your families in support of the student. The purpose of this tool is to catch any learning difficulties earlier rather than later, because in a child's first years of life, timing is pretty crucial. The most utilized tools are typically the ASQ, which are the Ages and Stages questionnaire, and the CDC milestones. These are both also recognized by the quality rating system we utilize, Early Achievers. When doing the ASQ or the CDC milestones, it is also important to consider how you will conduct it. Many providers will have a child's caregivers fill out this form as they are the experts on their child, especially when they are new to your program. This information and the results then need to be shared with the caregivers as well. If you have families who speak other languages, consider how you can apply the screening tool in the family's home language, as well as share the information in the same fashion. This may not always be possible, but it is important to help the families have a solid understanding if there's something that does stand out. These conversations with families are very important. While our job is not to diagnose any child, it is our job to share what we know about typical behavior, which these tools can support us in having these discussions. And then Brightspark does offer trainings periodically for the ASQ, and they're also offered in other organizations in our area as well. So lastly, we're going to tie it all together and kind of learn how all of this fits within the realm of expulsion prevention. Everything spoken about today are components that can help to prevent suspension and expulsion from happening in the first place. Having an environment that works for you, the teacher, as well as works for the children in your class, and having a strong foundational relationship with the child's caregivers are going to bring about more success for your students. Knowing what your resources are when you do need that external support is going to help you plan for the event that a child may need some extra support down the road. The idea to support the prevention of expulsion needs to factor into every piece of the puzzle because they are all related and on their own are tools at your disposal that can be used to prevent expulsion or suspension from ever happening in the first place. Again, this too is a part of the records review tool and having you, the provider, plan out in writing what your process is for working with children and families when they need that additional support. Some things to reflect on if you don't yet have a policy about expulsion prevention is to think about what would you do if you were faced with a child who has a difficult behavior that you haven't encountered before. So you might ask yourself some questions such as, what does child behavior mean to you? Reflect on why you think a child is demonstrating certain behaviors. What are they trying to communicate to you? Do you feel any type of bias when a child demonstrates a specific behavior? And why might you feel that bias? Do you feel that certain behaviors irritate you more than others? What about this behavior triggers you differently than the others? And then think about how you might communicate this with the child's family to partner alongside them. Think about the best way to approach this with a family. Do you want to call them, email, catch the parents at the door before entering the classroom? Parents oftentimes can shed a lot of light on certain behaviors, but remember that the environmental factors matter too. If a parent hasn't seen a behavior you're witnessing, consider the fact that a school environment is much different than a home environment and what that looks like. And then finally, who would you reach out to for additional support? Do you have resources you can access? Your coach is a fantastic resource and can help you find additional resources if they're needed. Reaching out for additional support in a timely fashion can mean the difference between getting support and a child who may face expulsion. These are all important questions to consider as you are getting your new school year started. These questions also reflect elements of the expulsion prevention policy because having a plan of action, how you might respond, is going to give you a framework from which to work from in these situations. Your coach can help you dig deeper into these questions and answers, and it can help you write your own policy around this.
All right. That was a lot to consider. Thank you all. We appreciate that you are taking the time to watch our presentation. And please feel free to reach out to your coach if any questions came up in the presentation or you want to learn more about any of the areas. Thank you again.